He guards me with a blade, yet wounds me with his gaze. My protector despises my plainness, his heart bound to my dazzling sister. But in the palace's shadow, a secret vow resurfaces, my name, carved into an ancient tree by his own hand. Is he my loyal shadow, or a vengeful ghost from a life I've long forgotten? Part 1. My sister is Claire Sue, the legitimate daughter of the Chancellor's residence. She's the kind of beauty that could topple kingdoms. From the Empress Dowager down to beggars in the street, everyone praises her face. She's slender and graceful. Her brows and eyes look as if they were painted in ink. Her red lips are so vivid they make people want to steal a kiss. I envied her. She wasn't just beautiful, she was gifted at everything. At the palace banquet half a month ago, she performed a single dance. Crown Prince Julian proposed to her on the spot, right in front of all the civil and military officials. At the time, I still had pastries stuffed in my mouth. I looked up and saw the man on the high throne in his dragon robe. He lifted a hand and granted the marriage. My name is Sophie Sue. I'm the Chancellor's concubine-born daughter. I've lived in my sister's shadow since I was little. My looks are ordinary. I can't play music, I can't play chess, I can't paint or write. The only thing I'm good at is cooking. My father is Chancellor Sue. That day he called my sister and me to the front courtyard. He said he would assign guards to us. The guard assigned to me was Ethan Song, a man. My sister's guards were 3 women. Ethan Song and those 3 women were all disciples of Ping Wang's sect. Father knew their master. At Father's request, the sect leader sent them to protect my sister and me for 3 years. It took me about half a month to realize Ethan didn't want to be my guard. Which made sense. He was lean and handsome, and his martial arts were superb. Being sent to protect me was a waste of his talent. Compared with me, it was obvious he'd rather protect my sister. Ethan's voice was beautiful, but he only used it to praise Claire. Things like, Miss Claire's beauty makes even fairies pale. Miss Claire's zither playing lingers for 3 days. Miss Claire. As for me, Ethan only repeated one line over and over, Sophie is a little dumb. Ethan didn't act like a guard at all. He was slick-tongued and bold. He often made my sister laugh until her eyes crinkled. He even showed her swordplay. I could only stand to the side and listen. I didn't understand it. Ethan was my guard. Why didn't he coax me? Why did he only try to make my sister happy? His answer was, because your sister is beautiful. So I started paying attention to my own face. I smeared on all kinds of rouge in front of the mirror. When I looked closely, I was just an ugly imitation. I had someone bring water and washed it off. Annoyed, I rummaged through a cabinet and found a dark blue sachet. The character Song was embroidered on it in pale silk thread. I glanced at the jade piece set aside nearby. After a long while, I sighed and put the sachet back. 5 years ago, I had met Ethan. That day was the Lantern Festival. My sister and I sneaked out of the residence to play. We didn't expect to get separated in the crowd. I couldn't find her. I didn't even remember the way home. I started crying right there in the middle of the street. That was when Ethan appeared. He wore frost-colored brocade. He crouched down and smiled at me. Little sister, you cry so ugly. I lifted my head in anger, then froze. This brother was so good-looking. In the end, Ethan took me home. He made me knock and go in first, and only after that did he leave. After I went inside, I suddenly realized I hadn't asked his name. I rushed back out, but he was gone. Only a piece of jade lay where he had been standing. Under the shimmering moonlight, the carved character on the jade was dazzling. Why? My sister's wedding date with Crown Prince Julian was set for half a year later. That day, my sister and I went to the temple to offer incense. In the carriage, I held my teacup and asked carefully, Sister, do you like the Crown Prince? I didn't really want to know whether she liked the Crown Prince. What I wanted to ask was whether she liked Ethan. Ethan was so good-looking, and he could make her laugh. My sister sipped her tea and smiled. Sophie, whether I like the Crown Prince isn't important. What matters is that he likes me. I choked. After hesitating for a long time, I asked again. Then, sister, do you have feelings? Oh, Sophie. She pinched my cheek, still smiling. My goal is the position of Empress. Love isn't important. My eyes widened. Her words sounded strange, yet somehow they made sense. It had always been like this. My sister always said things I didn't quite understand, but that sounded powerful. No teacher had ever taught them. Sophie, women must have ambition. My dear Sophie, remember this. Men are all big pig trotters. You can't rely on them. Read more books, eat fewer snacks, sleep more. There were many more like that. The words Ethan said most often in my ear were, "Why is your sister so weird? She's probably like me." Every time I heard that, my breath would catch. My eyes would fill with tears, and I'd ignore him. What? My sister is like him, both good-looking, and I'm the only one who isn't? Whenever we went out, my hands were always stuffed full of snacks, preserved fruit, sugar cakes, candied hawthorns, not a single thing missing. I ate as we walked, and Ethan kept buying more. As for my sister, her hands were empty. Her 3 guards carried everything for her, mostly clothes, jewelry, paintings, and calligraphy. I wanted that too, but Ethan stopped me. Miss Sophie doesn't need paintings and calligraphy. Miss Sophie doesn't need clothes and jewelry either. Miss Sophie should just eat her candied hawthorns. I often thought Ethan would be perfect, if only he didn't have that mouth. I remember one night when my sister and I were on a boat touring the lake. Out of nowhere, a group of masked people appeared, each holding a long sword. Ethan and my sister's guards drew their swords at once and shielded us behind them. Then, everything spun. Ethan slung me over his shoulder and ran. He sprinted all the way to the gate of the Chancellor's residence. After he set me down, I still hadn't steadied myself when he grabbed my shoulders, shocked. "Why is it, Miss Sophie?" From that one line, I could tell. The one he wanted to save was my sister. My stomach was already upset from being carried. Hearing that, I felt sick all over. Seeing that I didn't speak and only stared at him, he muttered, "Fine, fine. Miss Sophie is Miss Sophie." I turned and headed for the gate. Tears fell in heavy drops. I'd only taken 2 steps when he grabbed my arm. I looked up, thinking he'd finally found a conscience and would apologize. Instead, he said, "Miss Sophie cries so ugly." My childhood friend came back from the battlefield. His name is Lucas Jan, the only son of General Jan next door. When he was 12, he was dragged off to the battlefield to train. 6 years have passed now. He was also my sister's childhood friend, but she never liked playing with us. She said adults and children couldn't play together. But my sister was only 2 years older than me and 1 year older than Lucas. When Lucas climbed over the wall, I was reading a picture book out loud, chattering at Ethan, who was sprawled in a tree. I only felt my body lift. Ethan had already grabbed me and leapt aside. I was dizzy. The moment I steadied myself, I saw Ethan and Lucas fighting. Ethan's martial arts were excellent, but when trouble came, his first instinct was always to run, like the last time we were attacked, when he carried me and fled. This was the first time I'd seen him fight. I didn't understand much, but I could tell Ethan was striking hard. Lucas kept dodging and giving ground, only countering once in a while. I ran over and begged them to stop, but neither of them listened. Then I looked at the picture book in my hand. An idea struck. When they separated for a moment, I rushed between them and shouted, "Stop fighting!" And then they each landed a punch on me. One from the front, one from the back. I couldn't lie on my back, and I couldn't lie on my stomach either. I could only sit there and cry while the maids applied medicine. I tore the picture book in half and stomped it underfoot. All of it was a lie. Outside, my sister was scolding them. "Women are made of water. If you break her, can you afford to pay for it? You call yourselves men, and you hit a woman?" After the medicine was applied, I opened the door. Lucas immediately darted in front of me and apologized. I smiled and said it was fine. After a few polite words, Lucas turned to Ethan. "Hey, come here and apologize." I looked at Ethan. His expression was calm. His gaze flicked between Lucas and me. He gave a soft laugh, then vaulted over the wall and vanished. Lucas was furious and tried to chase him. I hurriedly grabbed him and said it was fine. If Ethan didn't apologize, so be it. He hurt me, not my sister. Lucas and Ethan were nothing alike. Not in any way. Lucas had a baby face. He was tall, cheerful, and loyal. He didn't have Ethan's crooked ideas, and he didn't have Ethan's silver tongue. Compared to Lucas, Ethan was mud underfoot. That night, my chest and back hurt too much to sleep. Hugging my quilt, I cursed Ethan out loud and leaned against the bed. When the moonlight faded, I couldn't hold on. I fell asleep like that. I don't know how long passed. I felt something cool on my injuries. Half awake, I opened my eyes and saw only a dark head, and my clothes pulled aside until only my undergarment remained. Before I could scream, a hand covered my mouth. It was Ethan. In the pitch-black night, his eyes looked bright. His other hand was still on my chest. When he saw my eyes brim with tears, he let go. He helped me dress properly. He shoved a small bottle into my hand and lowered his head. "Sorry. This is Pingwang sect's special wound medicine." Ignoring what he had just done, I pretended not to care. "Oh, it doesn't hurt that much. It'll be fine in a few days." Just then, the window made a soft sound. It slowly opened a crack, and a familiar voice drifted in. Sophie, are you asleep?" It was Lucas. Normally, I would have been dead asleep by now, but today... Ethan sprang up to the roof beams and crouched on a crossbeam. Soon Lucas climbed in through the window. When he saw me sitting up, wide awake, he said in surprise, "Sophie, you're really not asleep?" My eyes flicked toward someone on the beam. I gave Lucas a strained smile. Before I could speak, he shoved something into my hand. "This is our military camp's special wound medicine." I stared at it, stunned. With my other hand, I quietly shoved the first bottle under the quilt. I was about to speak when the door was pushed open again. A shadow flashed. Lucas had already leapt up onto the beam. The person who came in was my sister. Seeing that I was still awake, she looked a little surprised. She pinched my cheek and asked if the pain was keeping me up. I shook my head and said I just wasn't sleepy. She climbed onto the bed and took out an exquisite little box. "This is ice skin jade bone balm the palace sent a few days ago. I'll put some on you." I sucked in a breath and clung to her hand, acting cute. "I already used ointment today. Put it on me tomorrow." After some fussing, she lay down on her side. She gently pulled the quilt over me, careful to avoid my injuries. "I'm afraid you'll fall off the bed and make it worse. I'll sleep with you tonight." When I lay down, I saw the two of them on the slanted beam. They both crouched there stiffly, expressionless, with a person's width between them. Their faces said the same thing: "Don't come near me." I closed my eyes. My head ached. I turned to face my sister. After it grew quiet, I don't know how long passed. Just when I thought my sister had fallen asleep, she suddenly rested her hand over my heart. "Why is your heart beating so fast? Can't sleep?" Of course I was worried about when those two would leave. Ever since I was little, whenever my sister stayed with me and I couldn't sleep, she had one foolproof method. "Come on, I'll test you. There are chickens and rabbits in a cage, 27 in total. The chickens' feet and rabbits' feet add up to 86. Tell me how many chickens and how many rabbits." I closed my eyes and worked it out in my head. 27 total, 86 feet. When I opened my eyes again, it was already morning. My sister was gone from the bed, and Ethan and Lucas were gone from the beam too. These days, Ethan no longer lounged in trees. He wandered along the top of the wall all day, and Lucas didn't climb over anymore either. His father was probably keeping a tight watch. I was halfway up the ladder, about to climb onto the wall, when Ethan came over and blocked my view. I tugged at his clothes, telling him to move. He crouched and looked down at me, half smiling. "Miss Sophie is climbing the wall to look for Lucas, huh?" A breath jammed in my chest. I wanted to shove him off. Lucas is a year older than me. I should call him Big Brother. I'd called him that since childhood. A few days ago, I said, "Brother Lucas," a couple of times in front of my sister, and Ethan heard it. Now he kept mocking me with it, on purpose. When I ignored him, he simply grabbed me and lifted me down. The moment my feet hit the ground, a bundle was thrown over the wall. It burst open, scattering snacks and little toys. Then a head popped up over the wall. "Lucas." Ethan's face darkened in an instant. I'd heard early on that on the night of October 15th, the city would hold a lantern festival. There would be river lanterns and sky lanterns. From far away, the lights looked like a sea of fire, bright enough to turn night into day. Everyone said that if you wrote your wish on a lantern, then sent it up to the sky or down the river, your wish would come true. When my sister heard that, she only smiled. "Sophie, about wishes. Just tell me. I'm more reliable than any lantern." I only laughed, then gripped my brush and ran a little farther away with a sky lantern before I finally wrote. If I told my sister, how could I possibly say it out loud? I had only written 4 characters when chaos suddenly broke out ahead. I looked up, about to see what was happening, when Ethan grabbed me and lifted me. In a single leap, we landed on the roof of a pavilion. Looking down, I saw Lucas had arrived with men. I relaxed a little. It should be fine now. Ethan's hand at my waist seemed to tremble slightly. I looked at him in confusion. He was still staring at the chaotic crowd. Was he scared? Father said Pingwang sect disciples were top-class fighters, even better than experts of the imperial household. They were people of the martial world. If Father hadn't been friends with their master, Ethan wouldn't be by my side right now. So, what was he afraid of? Suddenly, the sky lantern in my hands was taken away. Ethan read the 4 characters aloud. I want to marry. My face flared hot. I lunged to snatch it back, but he held it higher. He bent slightly and laughed at me. Oh, who does Miss Sophie want to marry? Under the flickering light, Ethan's face looked like polished jade. He smiled faintly, his eyes fixed on me. I held my breath. I want to marry. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the people below restoring order. I pointed and blurted, Lucas, I want to marry Lucas. To cover my guilt, I even raised my voice. After he heard it, he nodded. His smile widened, and then he let go. The sky lantern floated away. That was Ethan, always picking fights with me, never giving in to me the way he gave in to my sister. I didn't argue with him. My eyes only stung as I looked up at him. After a long moment, he suddenly lifted his hand and covered my eyes. Miss Sophie, don't look at me like that. My hand slipped. I'll make it up to you with a river lantern. Then he produced a lantern from who knows where and handed it to me. Here. Write again. I snorted and grabbed it. After thinking for a long time, I wrote 4 characters. Safe and smooth. I cradled the lantern carefully, even shielding the words with my hand, and waited for him to take me to the river. He didn't peek. The corners of his mouth stayed lifted as he held me and leapt toward the riverbank. After the chaos, there were barely any people left by the river. I crouched down and set the lantern onto the water. Only after it drifted among the others did I stand. My sister's voice came from behind. I pinched my skirt and turned, about to go find her. Ethan gave a soft laugh, casual and lazy. Miss Sophie's wish isn't ambitious at all. Such a small wish, I already helped you make it come true. I froze, furious. So he had peeked again. When Lucas came through the main gate of the Chancellor's residence, I was standing on a swing, swaying back and forth. My sister lay on a lounge chair, resting with her eyes closed. Lucas had come to tell us what caused last night's chaos. It turned out a noble young man had taken a fancy to a woman and tried to snatch her right on the street. Lucas told it vividly, how forceful the young lord was, how pitiful the woman looked, and how Lucas himself handled it step by step. I listened, captivated. He seemed incredible. I couldn't help praising him. I hopped off the swing and brought him the pastries I'd made. My sister, still with her eyes closed, sighed softly. Ethan was lying in the tree too. He let out a sigh and said, "Childish." I paused, then ran over and looked up at him. "Ethan, get down here. Who are you calling childish?" He rested his hands behind his head, glanced down at me, smiled, and said nothing. I packed up all the pastries and gave them all to Lucas. Ethan wouldn't get any ever again. Just then, my sister opened her eyes. She toyed with a grape and said lightly, "Ethan, you're the childish one." In my heart, my sister was the smartest person alive. She always got what she wanted. She could even predict what would happen. Back on the boat, even though Ethan had carried me away, I later learned my sister had already anticipated the assassination attempt. She'd arranged people all around. That night, not a single assassin escaped, and at the palace banquet when she was named the future crown princess, she didn't change expression. It was as if she'd expected it all along. On the carriage ride home, she said exactly that. "Sophie, with my family background, looks and talent, is it really surprising I became crown princess?" I nodded. That was true. Later, I discovered Ethan was as smart as my sister. He could see through everything. He could guess what would happen next. Like how, the first day he arrived at the residence, he already guessed I knew nothing about music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. That was why he wanted to be my sister's guard from the start. He also guessed my sister would be granted marriage to the crown prince at that banquet. That was why he never once crossed the line with her. Later, he even guessed that father would be framed for treason and that I would be locked in the prison. But that came later. So now, when the carriage my sister and I were riding in was surrounded, my face went white. My sister remained calm. I peeked outside. There were many masked men, and they didn't look weak. Don't be afraid, Sophie. My sister poured herself tea and sipped slowly. I'm here, and Ethan is here too. Uneasy, I kept watching. Another group appeared from nowhere. I thought perhaps my sister had arranged them. But each time the masked men were cut down, another wave appeared. Endlessly. My sister sighed. The wedding date is close. Someone's getting anxious. I thought about what she meant, and it clicked. Someone didn't want her to become crown princess. Or rather, they couldn't allow it. While I was lost in thought, the sounds outside stopped. I pulled the curtain aside. I saw a group of people standing before Ethan. Their clothes were the same style Ethan had worn when I first met him 5 years ago. I faintly heard someone say, "Senior brother, we're heading back." Huh? Did Ethan call them? Then I heard hoofbeats. Before I could see who it was, my sister chuckled. Young General Yan is late. The curtain was lifted. Ethan turned his head slightly toward my sister. Miss Claire predicts everything. My sister curved her lips and patted my head. Guard Song, you're the same. Me. Why does it feel like I've been insulted? Ethan let the curtain fall. Then I heard them talking through the fabric. So, Miss Claire is one too? I didn't understand their riddles. I only heard my sister laugh softly. Ethan, you tell me. Ever since my sister said that the other day, Ethan Song had spent the whole day leaning against a tree, looking lost in thought. And whenever I was with my sister, his gaze would always drift to her. I was annoyed and didn't want to deal with him, so I went to the kitchen to experiment with new pastries. But he kept hovering around me. In the end, he leaned in and asked, "What are you making, miss? The whole place smells sweet." My hand paused mid-stir in the syrup. I looked up and smiled at him. Ethan Song, take a guess. He suddenly bent closer, grinning, flashing a row of white teeth. Guess whether I'm going to guess? Fuming, I grabbed a botched pastry and stuffed it into his mouth. Holding the sugar jar, I turned away and snapped, "May it sweeten you to death." My sister had booked a banquet at Rui Restaurant. She said it was to welcome Lucas Yan back and wash away the dust of travel. In her words, Lucas was practically half her little brother, since she'd watched him grow up. Lucas was pleased, but he still argued in a low voice. "You're only 1 year older than me. I don't want to be your little brother." My sister's tone lifted slightly. Her eyes swept over to me and she gave a soft laugh. "Then what do you want to be to me?" I just finished cracking a whole pile of roasted melon seeds my sister had someone prepare. I was gulping down tea. When I saw her looking over, I thought it would be rude not to respond and quickly set my cup down. But Lucas hesitated and stammered, and in the end, he didn't say anything more. On the agreed day, I put on a new gauze skirt I'd just bought. I even went to my sister so she could apply rouge for me. She was good at it. The clothes she chose were pretty, proper, and distinctive. The rouge she put on was noticeable, but never looked out of place. She tapped my lips with a pale fingertip and smiled. "Sophie, you look like you're going to meet your sweetheart." I chuckled and took it as a joke. Lucas Yan was still like half a big brother to me. Of course I had to take it seriously. When I pinched up my skirt and stepped out of my sister's room, Ethan Song was standing with his arms crossed, leaning against the wall. When he saw me, he clearly froze for a moment. Then he smiled. "Miss went out of her way to paint her cheeks so rosy, so you really are going to see Brother Lucas Yan." That sarcastic tone again. I put my hands behind my back, walked up to him, and looked up with a bright smile. "Yes, I'm going just to see Brother Lucas Yan." He stared into my eyes. Then he suddenly turned around and walked off, laughing as he went. Ha! 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 Just then my sister's personal maid was carrying a plate of grapes into the room. I stopped her, plucked one, and hurled it at Ethan Song's head. But it was as if he had eyes in the back of his head. He lifted a hand and caught it. I watched in surprise as he turned around, tossed the grape into his mouth, and said with exaggerated drama, "Sweeten me to death." Lucas Yan didn't come. The emperor had summoned him to the imperial palace. I stared at the dishes. After waiting for half a quarter hour, the one who arrived was a servant from General Yan's residence. My sister sat at the table, pressing her brow. I didn't see that coming. I poked at the meatball on my plate. Ethan Song pinched his wine cup and snickered. Neither did I. The other 3 female guards just ate quietly. I bit down hard on the meatball, still fuming. Early the next morning, I had barely splashed my face when I heard Lucas Yan's voice. I wiped off roughly, stuck my head out the window, and saw Ethan Song practicing in the courtyard. Lucas had climbed over the wall. I once asked Lucas why he always came by climbing the wall. He answered like this: "Climbing the wall takes one move. Otherwise, I have to go out my front door and then into your front door. Too much trouble." It made perfect sense, so I got myself a ladder too. But I never successfully climbed over even once. At first, my sister stopped me. Then Lucas got dragged away by his father. And now there was Ethan Song. Every time, before I even reached the top, he would grab me and lift me back down. Lucas had come to deliver things. The Emperor had summoned him yesterday to bestow a reward, but all he asked for was a night luminous pearl, some palace pastries, and a secret manual. The pearl was for my sister. The pastries were for me. The manual was for Ethan Song and the 3 female guards. My sister once said, Lucas was too loyal, too foolish, too straightforward. One day, he would be forced into an impossible choice. My birthday is on the 26th day of the 12th lunar month, in winter. Every year on my birthday, my sister personally made me a bowl of longevity noodles. They tasted awful. Cooking was probably the one thing she was worst at. But she didn't need to be good at it. This year, before that awful bowl arrived, I deliberately skipped 2 meals, hoping it would be easier to swallow. But unexpectedly, this year's noodles didn't seem so bad. Even before Ethan Song carried the bowl into the room, I could smell it from far away. After I finished every last strand, and even the broth, I let out a tiny burp. I was baffled at how much my sister's cooking had improved. At sunset, Lucas Yan expertly flipped over the wall and landed in the courtyard. He had a bundle slung over his back. If not for his calm expression, I would have thought he was running away from home. He spread the bundle out on the table. Inside were all sorts of delicate, odd little trinkets. They weren't expensive, but you didn't see them often in the capital either. He must have picked them up elsewhere. I counted them. There were 6. Are these all my birthday gifts? I lifted a pendant and held it up in the fading light. No. Huh? Not for me? Just as I was about to feel awkward, I heard him say, "These are gifts for the 6 birthdays of yours I missed. And this one is." He brought out the hand he'd been keeping behind his back. In his palm lay a jade bangle of superb quality. Lowering his gaze to me, he said, "This year's." I stared at the bangle, slightly dazed, my mind filled with a single thought: this is bad. I didn't prepare gifts for his 6 years. Before I could figure out what to do, he covered the bangle with his other hand, warmed it in his palm for a moment, then took my hand and slid it on. Warm, just right. Still startled, I saw him holding my hand and smiling. "I knew it would look good on you." I think that no matter how many times the world changes, no matter how many sunsets I see in this life, I'll never forget that a boy once slipped a warm jade bangle onto my wrist at dusk. He had a handsome baby face. He loved climbing over walls to find me. When Ethan Song came knocking, Lucas had already been gone for a while. Before he left, he told me he'd been busy lately and couldn't come as often. I said I understood completely. Lucas was going to become a great general someday. Of course, he wouldn't have as much idle time as I did. I was propping my chin up, thinking about what gift I should make to make it up to him. When Ethan Song walked in, he said it was snowing outside. I jumped up and looked out. It really was, flake after flake, falling like goose feathers. Before long, the courtyard had a thin layer. Under a few scattered lanterns, it gleamed faintly. The snow came down hard and didn't stop all night. By the next morning, it had piled up thick. The moment I opened the door, I saw Ethan Song practicing swordplay. Snow sprayed up with each movement. Then he sheathed the blade. The snow was scored with long grooves, probably from his sword. I hadn't even finished yawning when he swept me up and sprang onto a tree branch. Looking down, those winding grooves formed a picture. It didn't look like my sister. And it didn't look like me. It looked like a little girl. Seeing my thoughtful expression, Ethan Song laughed. "A little sister who loves to cry." I thought he meant the drawing. In a little over a month, it would be New Year's. Not long after that came my sister's wedding to Crown Prince Julian. No matter who my sister married, I couldn't bear to part with her. My mother died of heavy bleeding when she gave birth to me. Father was always busy with court affairs and had no time for me. My sister raised me. She was only 2 years older, but she'd been sensible since childhood. When I thought about how, after she entered the imperial palace, she would never sleep beside me again, and no one would pinch my cheeks and call me little Sophie anymore, I felt unbearably sad. In my hands was a red sachet, my New Year's gift for my sister. Ethan Song's rather helpless voice suddenly came from nearby. "Miss, if you keep crying, I'll have to bring a basin to catch it. Otherwise the floor will be a puddle in a moment." My sorrow was cut off on the spot. I quickly raised my hand and wiped my tears. Humph. He always had something to say. "Huh? Your sister was right. Women are made of water," he muttered, leaning by the window. I kept embroidering my sachet and ignored him. He leaned closer to look inside. "Even though it looks like a little duck, I can tell it's a pair of mandarin ducks." "Me." I stood up, pinched the needle between my fingers, and pointed it at him. "Ethan Song, say one more word and I'll sew your mouth shut." As I moved, Lucas Yan's jade bangle slipped into view on my wrist. His gaze paused for a beat. Then he smiled. "Miss, I'm terrified." All my sadness vanished instantly. What was left was nothing but fury, with nowhere to vent it. After I chased Ethan Song around for half the day without even brushing the edge of his clothes, my foot slid on ice formed from the snow. I went down hard. I screamed. An arm immediately hooked around my waist. I was turned over, and I fell onto Ethan Song instead. His scent hit me full in the face. Tsk. He tilted his head and touched his cheek. His fingertips came away with a little blood. Tears in my eyes, I covered my mouth. My front tooth had slammed into his face. It hurt like hell. I just hadn't expected it to draw blood. He helped me up and sat me on a stone bench. Then he looked at me seriously. "Miss, my face is injured. You have to take responsibility." My tooth still throbbed, and I didn't want to talk. I remembered the ice skin jade bone ointment my sister had given me. It helped prevent scarring. I rushed back to my room, grabbed it, and handed it to him. "I can't see the wound. Miss, help me apply it." His cheek felt cool. I carefully dabbed the ointment onto the spot where a faint tooth mark showed. Then he blinked and smiled. "Miss, the bangle looks nice." Before New Year's, my sister took me to Chang'an Temple to pray for blessings. The carriage rolled over the snow with a creaking sound. I pulled the curtain aside and breathed out toward the outside. White mist, one puff after another. Ethan Song popped up without warning. He scooped up a handful of snow and blew it into my face. I was so mad I nearly leaned halfway out to scratch him. And then, I got stuck. This was the new padded jacket my sister had bought me. It was thicker, and I'd changed into it just for today. I never expected it to wedge me in the window. Looking at Ethan Song's wide grin, I wanted to grab his face and yank. The carriage stopped. The 3 female guards held my coat and gently tugged me back in. My sister stepped down and looked me over, then smiled faintly. "Sophie, you're stuck perfectly." My face and both arms were outside the carriage. The longer it went on, the colder I got. Half dead, drooping out the window, I suddenly felt my cheeks cupped in warm hands. It was Ethan Song. He laughed and said, "Miss, why do your cheeks feel like a cold meat bun?" Then he lightly pinched them. With tears in my eyes, I looked at my sister. "Sister, look at him." At last I was tugged back into the carriage. As I leaned there catching my breath, my sister's voice came from outside. "Ethan Song, how old are you?" "Ethan Song, you're always like this. No girl will like you in the future." When my sister lifted the curtain and came in, I was covering my face with my hands. "What are you doing, Sophie?" "The hand warmer is right in front of you." I rubbed my cheeks. "My face is warm too. I can warm my hands with it." I prayed for a safety talisman for Lucas Yan. He was going to become a great general, and the battlefield was always dangerous. I hoped he could come home safely every time. When I got up to leave, I saw Ethan Song leaning against the wall, playing with pebbles. He tossed one high, caught it, tossed it again. On the way back, my sister was talking to me when the carriage suddenly stopped short. If she hadn't grabbed me, I would have rolled out. I pulled the curtain aside. Another assassination attempt. Ever since my sister was granted her engagement, we'd been through many attacks, big and small. Each time, it ended with more fright than harm. I assumed this time would be the same. But when I saw Ethan Song in white, stained with blood, I was truly scared. Bodies lay all over the ground. The carriage suddenly lurched forward as if out of control. My sister gripped my hand tightly. Before it plunged off a cliff, she jumped down with me. My face hit the ground. It hurt. Ethan Song and the 3 female guards caught up and helped us up. Ethan Song wiped the blood off his hands, then touched the cheek I just slammed into the ground. The ones who chased up with him were the men holding long sabers and swords. As we faced off, I heard hoofbeats. The first thing I saw was Lucas Yan in armor, galloping in on horseback. Behind him were many more riders. I relaxed a little, but before Lucas could reach us, an arrow tore through the air like it split the clouds. My sister shoved me away hard. Sister. Thud. The sound of an arrow burying itself in flesh. Ethan Song took it for her. He dropped to his knees. Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Veins stood out at his temple. He slowly turned to look at me. Before he passed out, he opened his mouth and said something, but I didn't catch it. Lucas Yan leapt off his horse and rushed to me, asking tensely if I was hurt. I stared blankly and only managed to say, "When I jumped from the carriage, I fell and it hurt. But I'm not injured." He took out a handkerchief and gently wiped my face. Then he held me close and sprang onto his horse. To a female soldier beside him, he ordered, "Send the eldest Miss Sue back to the Chancellor's residence." In his arms, I looked back silently. Ethan Song was being lifted up. The arrow was poisoned. Ethan Song stayed unconscious for a long time. He missed New Year's. I sewed several sachets, one for my sister, one for the female guards, one for Lucas Yan, and one for Ethan Song. In Lucas Yan's sachet, I placed the safety talisman. The sachet for Ethan Song was one I'd sewn long ago, dark blue. The household had already begun preparing my sister's wedding. More and more red appeared on the door frames and beams. I often wondered, my sister was going to marry Crown Prince Julian. She knew the Crown Prince liked her, but did she know Ethan Song liked her too? When my sister covered my eyes, I was staring off into space at the double happiness character on the door. I still remembered her murmured words after she came back that day. I miscalculated. I never understood what she meant. After Ethan Song fell unconscious, my sister only went to see him once. She took one look, then left. "Sophie, daydreaming?" My sister poured a cup of water and set it in front of me. I looked at her, thoughts surging, and finally asked, holding my teacup, "Sister, do you know Ethan Song likes you?" She paused. "If you little ones like someone, you'd probably keep it tucked away in your heart, properly hidden." When Ethan Song woke up, Lucas Yan happened to climb over the wall to find me. I was sitting on the swing, turning my sister's words over and over. If we like someone, we hide it in our hearts. The swing suddenly shifted, pushed lightly. Only then did I see Lucas standing beside me, smiling as he called Sophie. Today Lucas wore a spring blue brocade outfit. At his waist hung the sachet I'd given him. He looked strikingly handsome. I felt a little dazed. Back then, he used to be shorter than me. Now, in just a few years, I only reached his chest. "What are you thinking about, Sophie?" "I'm thinking, does your family's rice somehow make people grow taller?" He tilted his head, not understanding. I stood up, walked up to his chest and measured with my hand. "We're only 1 year apart. How did you end up so much taller?" His clear laughter rang out by my ear. "Sophie, you're a girl. I'm a boy. I grew taller so I can protect you." I looked at his face and suddenly remembered when I was 6. My sister and I were being chased by a dog. Lucas came running out with a stick and drove it off, and he didn't stop there. He chased it down several streets. When he finally came back, he was drenched in sweat. With one hand on his hip and the other braced on the stick, he said, "From now on, I'll protect you." I stepped onto the swing and grinned. "Then I'll be as tall as you." Lucas hurried over to steady me. He was quiet for a long time before stammering. "So, Sophie, I have something to tell you." I lifted my chin slightly, waiting. I waited and waited. No words came. Instead, I saw his ears turn red. Then he blurted out quickly, "I'll tell you after your sister marries the Crown Prince." And then he climbed over the wall and left. I jumped off the swing, completely confused. Then I turned and saw Ethan Song in the corner, holding the sachet that had been placed beside his pillow, staring at me. At last, the day of my sister's wedding arrived. That night, I slept beside her. It was probably the last time we would ever lie in the same bed. She stroked my hair and told me many things. "From now on, Sophie can do whatever she wants. If anything happens, I'll handle it. From now on, Sophie can go wherever she wants. I'll prepare silver and a carriage for you. I'm going to become the most honored woman. I'll protect Sophie and everyone in the Chancellor's residence." I wrapped my arms around her neck. Tears still filled my eyes. The next day, my sister wore a bright red wedding dress. What arrived wasn't the crown prince, but an edict sending everyone in the Chancellor's residence to the prison. It said father had plotted rebellion and would be beheaded, and the women of the household would be sent to the military camp. My sister changed out of her wedding dress and into prisoner's clothes. She held my hand and smiled lightly. "Sophie, don't be afraid. Someone will come save us." In that moment, the person I thought of first was Ethan Saul. Curled up in my sister's arms, I remembered seeing him standing in the corner with the sachet. His face was still pale. He walked toward me slowly, lifted the sachet in his hand, smiled a little, and spoke in a voice still hoarse. "It's really pretty." I felt awkward, unsure how to respond to the sudden praise, so I said, I made several. Everyone has one, you have one too." I remember he only lowered his head and chuckled, gripping the sachet tighter, and said nothing more. I had a dream. In the dream, I was locked in the prison too, but I was alone. My sister was confined in the imperial palace, and father had been murdered. The rest of the people, I didn't even know where they were being held. The cell was cold and damp. There were rats. I kept clutching the jade bangle. Lucas Jan said he would save me. He said he would find proof that father had been framed. He said he would let me walk out of here openly, in the light. But I didn't wait for Lucas. What came instead was a man I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have known him. He tore my clothes apart and forced himself on me. No matter how I screamed until my throat tore, no one came. I don't know how long passed before he finally stopped. He tossed me aside like a rag and left. The light outside the window dimmed bit by bit. I fell into total despair. Shaking, I hugged the jade bangle to my chest. I bit off my tongue. "Brother Lucas Jan, I'm sorry." Blood ran down my chin. Before I lost consciousness, I saw a blurred figure sprinting toward me. Who was it? I didn't know. When my sister shook me awake, I realized my face was soaked with tears. I stared at her in confusion, then clung to her as if she were my last lifeline. "Sister, I had a nightmare. I dreamed father died, sister was confined, and I... My sister touched my cheek and said softly, "Sophie, don't be afraid. It was only a nightmare. Father is still alive, we're all still here." I burrowed against her. As I lifted my hand, my fingers brushed the jade bangle on my wrist. In my dream, I had this bangle too. That dream was too real, so real it felt like it had truly happened. That person who ran to me at the end. Who was he? Father had always been someone both Crown Prince Julian and Prince Adrian tried to win over at court. Ever since my sister was granted her engagement to the Crown Prince, everyone knew who was behind the assassinations. I just never expected that when he couldn't win father over, he would frame him for rebellion. My sister said she had long anticipated it. It only happened earlier than she expected. She also said she had already sent people to find evidence of Prince Adrian's rebellion. All she needed now was a crucial letter in his possession. After 3 days in prison, Lucas Jan appeared. He looked like he hadn't rested much. His clothes were wrinkled, and there were dark shadows beneath his eyes. The moment he opened the cell door, he urgently looked me over from head to toe. Then he wiped the dirt off my cheek with his finger and said gently, "Sophie, it's fine now. I'm taking you out." I nodded, and I took my sister's hand as we followed him out. Outside the prison gates, a carriage was waiting. I glanced at it without thinking. Ethan Song wasn't there. Only the 3 female guards stood ahead. Everyone in the Chancellor's residence was released without charges. Prince Adrian and his faction were arrested for treason and rebellion. My sister still married Crown Prince Julian and became the Crown Princess. Everything returned to normal. But Ethan Song vanished. Or rather, from the day he saw me talking with Lucas Jan, held the sachet, and told me, "It's really pretty." I never saw him again. Maybe he had his own things to do, and no time to be my guard anymore. After all, my sister had married into the Eastern Palace. So at my side, there appeared another disciple from Tianwang sect. He wasn't as talkative as Ethan Song. Most of the time, he just stood quietly. Lucas Jan told me that it was Ethan Song who retrieved that letter. But after handing it to him, Ethan Song beat Tutorly's son half to death and then disappeared for good. Mr. Bly, the imperial noble consort's younger brother, and the same man who, at the Lantern Festival, had tried to seize a civilian girl by force. When I climbed the ladder and got up into the tree where Ethan Song used to lie, I truly didn't expect that my first successful use of that ladder would be like this. It was a thick, sturdy pagoda tree. It would be some time before it bloomed, but I could already faintly smell its light fragrance. "Miss Sue, please be careful," the new guard said. He always addressed me respectfully, "Miss Sue." I waved to show I was fine, then lay sprawled on the branch Ethan Song used to lounge on, hugging it tightly, my fingers digging in. I used to think he lay up here simply because he wasn't like other young gentlemen, because he didn't like sitting properly. I never knew that from this angle, you could see straight through the window into my room. I stared for a while, then let out a bitter laugh. It felt pointless. My fingertips brushed the bark and caught on a rough, uneven spot. I leaned in to look, and froze. This pagoda tree had been thick and tall for as long as I could remember. The carved letters on the side of the branch must have been there for a long time, too. The cuts had darkened like charcoal. Clear before my eyes were the words, "Sophie Sue Ethan Song." A few days later, I was sitting on the swing, swaying gently, when I realized everything around me was too quiet. Then a sharp, thin voice carried in from several doors away. "The imperial edict has arrived."